Welcome to the Carl Sterling Podcast, delivering conversations with experts and excellence in education.
Right. Good to be here. And thanks for watching. For those of you who are joining us, we're streaming live to Facebook and we're on Zoom. We have a few people on already. This is fantastic. So I've been excited to bring my guest to the program because he has done many things in the area of branding and strategic change management, just building and scaling complex supply lines, creating products that are great for people to use for their health and their conditioning. And one of the products which we're going to talk about today primarily is something called the Clamor, which we're very fortunate to have a Clamor here in my neuromotor training facility here outside of Syracuse, New York. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest, the co-founder and CEO of Clamor, Avrum Elmakis. Avrum, welcome, my friend. How you doing, man?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Carl. This is a pleasure. And I'm doing great. It's an exciting time, and we're really excited about what we're up to here.
I'm glad because it seems like, well, I'll go back for a minute. A couple of weeks ago, we were at the Ernst conference in Miami Beach. And although we have spoken before and met before, we actually met in person there. So I'm really glad we had that opportunity. And you have a wonderful group of people who's working with you at the booth. There were several climbers and some workouts going on with a couple of faces who I recognize from the videos on my Clamor, right? So that was fun. But also what I noticed is similar to myself, people who were new to seeing the Clamor and being introduced to it at the conference, they're quite in awe of the product. So bravo to you on that.
Yeah, thank you. It's always inspiring as an entrepreneur or founder when, people you haven't met or you don't know, see your product and your invention for the first time. You never know how they're going to react to it. So that's a very rewarding feeling as a business person to kind of have that, really excited reaction that I feel like we had at that convention.
Yeah, I just want to kind of start our conversation with that we, again, are very fortunate to have a Clamor here. And we use it with everybody, almost everybody. There's some people who have difficulties just because I work with a lot of people, movement disorders, couple, and can't walk, can't stand up. But for the most part, 90% or more, we use it to some degree with them. I know that I'm curious to know, I want to get around to this, how did Clamor come to be? Did you have a target market in mind? I know you have athletes using it. You have a lot of people using it. You have celebrities using it. We've used it here basically to work towards increasing blood and oxygen to the brain, because you get a fantastic strength and cardiovascular workout with this, like no other that I know of. Your bang for the buck here, time-wise, is you're going to get burn more calories on the Clamor than any other piece of equipment in here, or probably on any other cardio exercise. But one thing I know we'll talk about in the future at some point is maybe doing some research on the movement disorder population. Because we're finding that when people do the Clamor here, a lot of them have cognition and memory issues. They seem to do better after a few minutes on the Clamor. Yeah. And there are a couple of factors, and we'll figure that out in the future sometime. But also they love it. They feel it's a real challenge. It's a sense of accomplishment. So I know what I use the Clamor for personally, which is I'm looking to get lean and ripped and cardiovascular conditioning. I know I use it for our clientele here, our patients here. How did Clamor come to be? What did you have in mind when you started the company as far as the market?
Yeah, so great question. So I would say I'm constantly exploring things in my own life. I try to build businesses based on my own experiences. And, I was a triathlete before I started Clamor, and did a lot of different types of exercises, right? From running to cycling to rowing to swimming. And for me, I always felt like swimming was like the most easy on my body, A, and B, that, I was able to accomplish a lot in a limited amount of time. And so, the point being is I felt like I was attuned to kind of like what these different forces that I was putting on my body were. I had no intention of starting a fitness company or a health company or a wellness company. But life, from exiting our previous business, my wife and I had a of all things, a natural dog treat and shoe company that we exited, and that life brought us to Denver, Colorado, which is a very fit outdoor community. And I had never really been exposed to any climbing technology. And I came across a Versa climber, which has been around for a very long period of time. That's the climbing device. And for the first time, I was like, wow, this to me almost feels a lot like swimming, right? Like, where for me, my experience was great full body workout, didn't feel any pressure on my body in any particular way, right? And when I would get done with a big run, my knees would hurt, my shins would hurt, my hips would hurt, my back would hurt. When I got done with a big ride, on the bike, same thing, my neck would hurt, my back would hurt. So I was like, wow, why don't people know about this? And so, I started really looking into the modality and some of the research around the modality of this contralateral climbing motion, and just really fell in love with it. And I felt like you would see them in really high performance training centers. So they exist in every professional sports team, and you'd see them with like high powered executives and lots of folks, but not, the world didn't know, right, about the modalities, how I would describe it. And so that's what set me out on this mission to say there were a lot of things about the existing technology that I wish were different. And so, as is the case with many entrepreneurs, you set out to kind of change those things and kind of reinvent those things. And so in October of 18, we started sketching out, what it could look like and what it could be. And that was the genesis of it. It was important to me at that time, Carl, that I would build something that would be just as relevant to me as it would be to my mother, who has a knee replacement, is in her 70s, and again, doesn't have, necessarily cognitive issues or movement issues, but has, physical impairments that preclude her from being able to do running on a treadmill or rowing on a rower. And so that was kind of one of the pieces, that was important even at the very, very beginning. And so we knew that the market would be very wide, right? From young to old, from, shorter to taller, from bigger to smaller, from, all sorts of conditions. But it's been this incredible journey. And the other thing I would say before we even move on is I could feel something different from a mental clarity standpoint in myself, right? Not just, I've worked out hard at various points in my life, lots of different ways, and that gives a sense of accomplishment and a sense of well-being and, that kind of endorphin high that you get from a really tough workout. This was different for me. And so I kind of knew there was, a there. And then over the years, we've kind of, exposed a lot of that.
It's amazing. So you're talking not even 4 years ago, you started sketching it out. So, and then you had a pandemic going on. So this is now just from my perspective with some of the videos I see of like DJ Khaled using it, LeBron James, and other, I think some MMA fighters, and I'm not real familiar with that world, but you got some people are using this thing, and it seems like I'm hoping, anyways. It seems like the momentum is picked up pretty quickly because people are catching on. This is a really great product.
I think, the beauty of building a good product with the right intention is that's all you need, right? I mean, it's much more complex than that, right? And none of us planned on COVID, and none of us planned on supply chain, and none of us planned on lots of these things that happened in the world that we have no control over. But what we can control is, our intentions. What we can control is, a product that actually works, right? And provides value to all of these different folks. And it's incredible to see, like even today, Mike Weir, who's a Masters golf champion, is on Instagram with his Clamor. And
wow, man. I'll have to check that out.
It's just it's so fascinating. Like if you think about a celebrity, a golfer, a basketball player, a football player, it's so impactful. But to be frank with you, to me, the most incredible thing, the most joy that I've gotten through this journey is seeing patients like yours, get value out of this machine, because it goes back to that original intention of everybody should be able to do this and get value in their own way for different reasons, whether it's a really tough workout or whether it's we're trying to move again or whatever. It's that's the key.
Well, it's interesting. First of all, I love your intention behind it, which really makes it authentic and genuine, that you're coming from a place of really thinking about other people and what does provide value. What can we do that will really help a wide range, or maybe everybody, wide range of people. It's interesting. I've been doing this a long time in my business, and we've only had the Clamor now maybe 3 months set up and operational. I think it's April it was set up. So we're about 3 months in. But what's interesting is prior to that, I have an elliptical, I have a rowing machine, I have a really nice Nordic super high-end studio bike with 800 places in the world you can go and bike, and different resistances, and nice treadmill and Stairmaster and all these things. However, let me also say that we would get somebody on a couple of those things. People won't do what they don't like to do, generally speaking. So I'd rather have them do things they will do, and then work at getting better at that. And one of the things that we see often is a lack of cardiovascular fitness, if you will, endurance, and where they're winded very quickly when they first, maybe when they just start coming in here for their sessions. Well, we could be doing any of those machines I just mentioned for weeks or months. However, 3 months of Clamor, and there are people who are doing much better. They've made much quicker progress, doing less time of cardio, but doing it on the Clamor. Yeah. And so that in and of itself is a really cool thing, because now they'll do, one guy came in, he did 45 seconds the first time. That's it. He was done. Well, now he's up to 5 minutes. This is 3 months later. I have another one, similar situation, 1 minute 2 months ago, 3 minutes the other day. And it doesn't sound like long to people, but you have to understand what it is to be on the Clamor. But it also means that they can get on their other piece of equipment that they like to do, or a couple of them, and totally blow away their past numbers on those. Yeah. So thank you for that. And thank you for my people, because they also know we were going to talk today, and they appreciate this. There's more to it than that, and I don't want to take up our time with me saying a whole lot of stuff, but I will say that I know we've talked about in the future doing maybe a project and some research there's a lot more going on than just a cardiovascular workout and a full body multi-muscle group, total muscle group workout for strength. You got the cross patterns, reciprocal limb cross patterns. But I'm absolutely convinced that the increased circulation to the brain, blood and oxygen, along with the neurochemicals that are created from doing that, growth hormones, preservation hormones, but two hemispheres of the brain, I think they're firing better together because we have reciprocal pattern going on, not whatever the opposite name is for that of a climbing pattern, because we don't climb same limb. We do opposite limbs.
Yeah, you could imagine, somebody like climbing like that. The analogy I use for this, Carl, is like, there's two things that as people we are born with, regardless of where we're born in this world. One is, and that's our innate programming, crawling, which is the contralateral movement pattern, which I think most of science would agree is really one of the primary one of the primary things that really sets our brain in motion, or our cognitive incline. And then as we go through this life, right, and the second thing we know how to do is stand upright and walk on 2 feet, right? Everything else we kind of learn, right? Like, you don't know how to ride a bike, you don't know how to row on a rower, you don't know how to speak your language yet, you don't know, all these different things. But I think for me, it's that return to the true primal movement, which is innate in all of us, versus trying to figure out how to do something to get something to happen. And the analogy I use is, we come as a baby into this world, and we typically leave as a baby when we leave this world. And I like you, also have a very strong belief that there is, some ability to help as that cognitive decline sets in. Because if you think about that crawling motion, it's something that we do usually from like a couple months old in life to maybe a year old in life. And then we really kind of never do that again, right? Or very rarely do we do that again. And
seldom on purpose anyways, right?
So it's just really cool that to me is just this unbelievable extra thing to it beyond what you were originally talking about, which is, yes, it's a great workout, yes, it's full body, yes, it's all of these different things, but that part of it to me is also very exciting and interesting to explore.
It is, and there's a lot more that needs to be done with that exploration. And we'll talk at some point on another private meeting. We'll have to talk about our protocol and what, getting this together. It's going to be really cool. I have 2 granddaughters. One is about 19 months, I think, and the other is 15 months. The 15-month-old started to walk just before I came, the Sunday before Ernst conference. She took her first steps.
Wow.
Now she's almost running. But so she was 14 months when she started walking, which for some babies that would be considered late. My other granddaughter walked before that. But my son, her father, understands movement, understands primal movement. And I said maybe 3 or 4 months ago, she was getting ready to take her first steps. He said, yeah, I know, but I want her to crawl for as long as possible because of this developmental period. And I said, yeah, I don't blame you. Why encourage walking? Because we know that once she starts, she'll never stop. So let's just get she got another couple of months of crawling in. What's really interesting though, too, and I'm sure that's good for development in every aspect. What's interesting is yesterday, she's at my house. I forgot to block off the stairs going up. She was ready to crawl. And guess what motion she was using? Right hand grab, left hand grab the other step. So she was going to she didn't have to think about contralateral.
Yeah.
It's just inherently what we do.
It's a beautiful thing when the product that you're selling or you're creating is primal, right? Like it's innate in all of us. It's not like you're creating something new to the world. So I always say, like, it's within you, right? And each of us has our own peak, right? So for somebody to come in, I've seen people that start with 15 seconds. They don't even make it to 45 seconds. And that's that person's peak. And then they continue to rise, right? But what's fascinating is that movement after you've done it. Like it's funny. I've watched thousands of people now get on the machine, maybe tens of thousands of people. And at first you forget like how to do that. You're like, is it the right arm up first and then the left leg down or whatever? Because we forget, but then within 5 minutes, it's like, oh, I've done this before. And somewhere buried in our mind, is that return to, what we all know.
Interesting. In the workshops that I teach around the world, we have foundational primal movement patterns as a part of the course because, people with Parkinson's, the number one concern in that population is falling, right? Because the number one, statistically, number one cause of mortality or complications from a fall. So we want to keep people from falling, but they're still going to fall. You can't stop every fall just from one course or one lesson, but we will teach how to get back to safety if they do fall down. So if they fall down and hopefully they're not injured, and if they are, hopefully it's very minor, we teach them how to roll over, front to back to front, both directions. And sometimes that's actually a problem for people. Some people have lost that ability. They wake up first thing in the morning, they open their eyes. The first thing they need help with, their first challenge, is rolling over in bed. Something we can easily take for granted until we lose the ability. The next thing is to get up onto all fours. And the next thing is to crawl back to a chair or some object to help, or no object and help, So we practice getting up and getting down and getting up and down, but crawling is a part of this. And I haven't told you this before, but I will tell you that people I do that with here crawl better after we do the climber. So we climb first, and then maybe do a couple other things, or maybe not. And then we do our fall matrix pattern, and we do our foundational 7-8 minutes of, oh, I fell down, I need to roll over, get on all fours, crawl and get up. They'll crawl better after a climber.
Mm-hmm. And again, I guess it's to me, that's pretty intuitive, right? Because they're getting that same motion that they're now going to replicate, if they were to fall, or if they're practicing, falling and then getting back up again. So it's
absolutely,
it's just, it's great to hear that though. So
Avrum, I'm curious to know, this is an organic conversation. We didn't really have any questions planned ahead other than what I already asked, but do you have a primary, let's say, consumer right now? Is it athletes? Is it fitness trainers? Is it gyms? Is it where are the climbers going to the most at the moment? And who else are you looking to reach? Do you have any markets in particular? That's 2 questions. I have another one too, but we'll wait on that.
Yeah. So let me segment those 2. So the beauty of people and the beauty of movement is we as a company should aspire to meet people where they are, right? To create true value for them. And so to answer that question, it's, from a marketplace standpoint, it's everything from a boutique gym to a floor-based gym to a university or a high school, all the way to a customer that might be at home, right? And it's a very wide demographic of potential marketplaces and potential places that I think we could sell to. And so there's no true what's beautiful about this is it's the technology, right? It's the intellectual property. It's not a company that's just focused on, hey, let's sell connected fitness equipment to the consumer. It's just as valuable to, a floor gym, and just as valuable to, a fire station, because again, you're thinking about climbing a lot of ladders, and a police station as it is to a cruise ship or whatever. So the marketplace and the opportunity is very wide for very different reasons, right? So we're just wrapping up a 16-month trial with Mount Sinai. And the reasoning behind there is, how do we find things that are safe for patients with severe back pain? Because there's not a lot of options for those folks. And what science is saying is, not doing anything is the worst thing that you can do when you have that. And so it's a tool, to that point, for different people for different reasons. So it's everything from the consumer at home to healthcare institutions to physical fitness application, right? From a who is the customer standpoint, I think as long as you're, at high school age all the way to your 80s and 90s and still have mobility, that's the customer, right? And so if you said, who is your target market, right? Like if I said, hey, who's going to run, like truly run on a treadmill? I would say that's probably high school to, 40s and maybe even 50s, right? But it's probably much harder to find runners in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yes.
And so, and again, and not that there are not those runners.
No, but there are less, I'm sure of that.
I think there's much, much less because of the impact that just happens as we run. So, and that's one of the challenges, right, of being a CEO and leading companies, because that customer demographic is so wide. And
sure.
And that potential market is so wide. And that's what, as a business and as a CEO, we're trying to solve for, and we're trying to figure out, okay, well, where do we focus, right, specifically?
Sure.
Today, I would say the majority of our customers are, in their middle years of life, and they're primarily looking for something that's safe, right? Safety is the first thing that we always hear. I want something that's not going to hurt my back, that's not going to hurt my knees, it's not, that is not going to create a ton of impact. And the second thing we hear is time, right? So just like we all share ratably this crawling motion. Doesn't matter whether we're born in Brazil or China or Africa or the United States or Canada. We all crawl and we all stand upright and walk on 2 feet. And it's, but the other thing we do share across humanity is time. And so the other thing we really hear is, I'm able to accomplish what I set out to do, whether that's physical, mental, whatever, in much less time, because, on this machine. And so rather than my bike ride that was 40 minutes, I'm able to do this for 15 or 20 minutes, and the result is equal. If I'm looking at calories burned, or if I'm looking at whatever. So I would say those are two very common things that we hear from the customer.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, and I can appreciate the time factor. That's why I do it so often myself, because it is the best use of my time for a really good workout. So I was also wondering, with the athletes, you have a lot of athletes, professional athletes using this. I'm just curious, I know the overall feedback is good, but can you give us any more specific feedback? I'm just curious about that, because they've got to be loving this thing.
They do. And I think it's 3 main reasons. Again, it's safe, right? Because typically when you're talking professional sports, those are very high impact, right? Whether we're talking about a hockey player, a basketball player, a football player, whatever. But they require a lot of effort, from the physical system. And so again, I think that those athletes are looking for something for their training that is a low impact, safe environment.
Sure.
They don't have a ton of time. And so they want to hit it for a very quick period of time. And I think, the trainers, which are even more interesting than maybe even the athletes themselves, are just so confident in the inability of the athlete to really injure themselves, right? So I think if you were to talk to a trainer, they would say, and we work with the Nuggets and which is an NBA team, and the Colorado Avalanche, which
all right.
Go Av. They're just our Stanley Cup champs.
All right. That's right. I forgot about that.
I think the trainers would say, we like a fixed plane of motion, right? Mm-hmm. We like to know what that motion is rather than giving the athlete or the individual intuition, right? So when you think about choice, right? Like you could ride your bike like this, you could ride your bike like this, you could ride your bike like this, you could row like this, you could row like this, and all of those things, or most of those things, are seated, right? And so the act of sitting in and of itself is automatically, causing some compression. And so I think the cool thing is that the athletes, much like we would look to a doctor to say, hey, this is what I'm going through, what should I do, are hearing from their trainers that, hey, this is what I want you to be doing, because it's going to give you the results, but we know it's also going to give you those results safely.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I would like to just say something here for people who are watching. All of us have a brain. All of us have a nervous system, And so one of the things that I really love about the Clamor, besides what we've already said, is the fact that once we get on this thing and we start moving, no matter what the pace is, no matter what duration of time we're doing, although longer is always better, I also feel this is the best machine for, let's say, elevating the heart rate. You can pace yourself. They're a really nice guide. I also meant to say, so I'm going to say two things at once. There are some beautiful guided workouts, and I don't know how many there are, but they have to be hundreds, because we can go in and we can pick workouts that include the Clamor solely, or there's some stuff off the Clamor and then on the Clamor and off and on. But what I really want to get to saying here is that you can use a guided workout. You can also participate. I'm in the Mount Denali challenge this month, and I've got about 18,000 feet to go, so I better get moving. We also have the fact that because your heart rate will be elevated more quickly, this is going to help us to create growth factors in the brain, particularly BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is best produced by an elevated heart rate. And this is also known in some arenas as miracle growth of the brain. So when the brain creates this after elevating the heart rate for a few minutes, and the higher it goes, the quicker you do it, the more BDNF there will be. This is a neuroprotective hormone and protein that helps to slow the death of dying brain cells and can even possibly give birth to new brain cells in cerebellum. I'm sorry, not the cerebellum, scratch that, the hippocampus and the olfactory bulb. So I'm saying this because we notice people with cognitive decline, early dementia, doing better when they get off. There are two different ways to look at the benefits, cognitive benefits. One is short-term, one is long-term, and that's a different conversation. Both are going to be helped. But what we're also looking at is we're looking at another vehicle here to get that heart rate up, create BDNF, have it circulate, and preserve cellular structure in the brain and slow the death of dying brain cells is really what what a primary benefit to the brain from any type of movement, but particularly the climber because of the intensity that you can choose to do on it. And for anyone who is predisposed, like we have Alzheimer's in my family, the mom's side. So, well, if you're genetically predisposed to maybe having some kind of disease like that, well, maybe you'll fend off or you'll put off the onset or eliminate it altogether. So I had to say that because I can't think of anything better than the climber to do this. And I'm really not trying to. I'm being completely authentic with this. In other words, it's not just because you're here with me, Avrum, that I'm saying this. I'm saying this to everybody who I meet. With that said, how can people go and find out more about the climber, and how can they go about buying one?
Yeah, no, thank you, Carl. It's exciting to see your excitement, and I know we've talked about this, but it's I think one of the keys to life, at least that I've found, is just authenticity, right? And so if it works and you believe in something, like you want to share that with other people. Absolutely. You want other people to know that, because what's better than having other happy, healthy people?
Yeah, really.
In my opinion, there isn't a better outcome for this world. But people can learn a ton more, like lots of information on Clamor.com. It's without vowels. It's CLMBR.com. And you can purchase a machine there. And there's lots of other places, that folks can search and purchase from. Whether
it is I'm interrupting. I'm really sorry. That is a really well-built website. A lot of information, a lot of data. So yeah, Clamor.com, CLMBR.com.
Yeah. It's you could get lost in there, and I even find myself doing that sometimes, and we continuously are adding to it, right? Like whether it's blog posts or different advisors or different athletes or whatever, and just having, and even our customers sharing their experiences and their journey, because they're all so unique and different. But that's the most rewarding thing as an entrepreneur, is to see people that maybe haven't moved in a long time sharing their story, or an athlete saying, you know what, I'm a professional runner, but my running has gotten unbelievably better as a result of doing the climber. Yeah. And things like that just are kind of like mind-blowing to somebody like me, because I'm like, this is just so, so interesting and so exciting to see the value that's being created.
I agree, and correct me if you think I might be off base here, but I don't think I am. When you really look at it, it's just so simple, because we're taking an inherent primal foundational movement pattern, we're putting it in a position where you're upright. You're not actually crawling on a floor, but you're doing reciprocal limb motion. I mean, how simple can it get? And I mean, what I love, though, and I mean that with respect, we're taking something that we don't do anymore. Like you said, who gets on the ground and crawls on purpose unless they come to see me, probably, and a few other teachers out there, instructors. But also the different grip, this and that. We can adjust the handles for the person, their height, or maybe trying something new with them. The guided workouts, adjusting our stride, our speed. Are we going to go long? Are we going to go short, medium? What grip, what muscle group are we targeting? It's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah. There's something for everybody. Yeah. And like, to the point, like for some people, just this is okay. Yeah. And then for others, you see some of these professional athletes and it's like this. So there's utility for all of us, right? Yeah. Which again goes back to the original intention and the original motivation behind it. It was not set out to make money. It was not set out for professional athletes. It was not set out for any particular group of people. It was set out to make the world better. Right. And that's a really important thing to know, and to know that you're doing that in a safe way where it's that much more rewarding, right? And it happens organically. And then, like today I was on the drive into work and I see this Masters golf champion, and it's just like that just lights you up, because you're not asking those folks to do that. We're not paying people to do that. And it's very different than I think a lot of what we see, in the world of product marketing, if you will.
Well, we just met this year, and when I first met you, and I feel this way even more, is just your genuinity, your authenticity, your intentions for all that you're doing. I feel that, and I really appreciate what you're doing, where you're coming from and what you're trying to do, because you're doing a fantastic job. I mean, you're what, 3.5 years into this, from sketching to now you thousands of these, or tens of thousands out there, and in a pandemic. And bravo to you. And, I'll always try to help you in any way I can. I really appreciate what you're doing, and so glad you took this time to join me. I really appreciate this, Avrum. Thank you.
Carl, it's been my pleasure. The respect is mutual, and I appreciate the work you do. And I look forward to continuing this journey together with you and seeing if we can continue exploring different angles and possibilities, all with the intention of helping people, which is if that's the goal, that I can't think of a better one.
Me too. That's what it's really all about. I don't know who said this. Somebody, might have been Muhammad Ali, but I love the quote. It ain't about me, it's about we.
Yeah.
Because it's not about me. I'm just a guy. So it's about we. If you don't mind, I'm going to end this in just a moment, but please stay with me for like 1 minute. Just wanted to ask you a question. Anything else you want to share with us before we sign off?
No, Carl, I appreciate the work you do. I hope the listeners have gotten some value and understanding of what we do at Clamor. And, feel free to reach out to me directly for anybody listening with questions, concerns, feedback, and it's been a pleasure to connect today.
Well, again, thank you so much. Really, I was looking forward to this, and it's so nice to talk with you and bring what you're doing to my audience. Folks, be sure to go to clamor.com, CLMBR.com. Check it out. There's a lot of stuff there. It's a great website, great product. Avrum, thank you again. And everyone who's watching, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and have a fantastic day. Take care.
Thank you.